Here's the presentation on the War on Terror. The war harkens back to issues in the 90s during Operation Desert Storm in 1991. Operation Desert Storm was a war in which Saddam Hussein and his Ba'ath Party, which ruled Iraq at the time, invaded the country of Kuwait to its south. Um, the U.S. intervened in what's called Operation Desert Storm to liberate Kuwait from Iraq, and they had a clear-cut decision to do this. Instead of going into Iraq to destroy Saddam's leadership, they simply liberated the country of Kuwait. Years later, in an unrelated attack on September 11th, 2001, the World Trade Centers, the Twin Towers, as well as the Pentagon, were bombed by suicide bombers of the terrorist group Al-Qaeda. This made tensions between the U.S. and the Middle East reemerge, despite the fact that Al-Qaeda has no connection to Iraq, Saddam Hussein, or the Ba'ath Party. Another thing that rose with tensions was that Iraq was led that had faulty information that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. This furthered tensions between the U.S., leading them to war. So, in summary, the reasoning for the war on terror were threefold: to eradicate terrorism in the Middle East, to destroy Saddam Hussein's tyrannical Ba'ath Party and establish a democracy in Iraq, and to prevent the Iraqis from using WMDs on the United States. A big issue with the war was the overarching prominence of torture. This occurred in two prisons: Abu Ghraib prison, which was a former prison owned and ruled by Saddam Hussein's Ba'ath Party, and that was in Iraq, and then Guantanamo Bay prison, which was in Cuba. Both these prisons held prisoners of war, suspected terrorists, or even innocent people. Techniques such as waterboarding, which was it simulated drowning, that was used in Guantanamo Bay and was brought up to much questioning. And then in Abu Ghraib, there was lots of cruel and unethical forms of torture, such as blindfolding prisoners or putting them in deprecating or embarrassing positions and forcing them to pose. And these were all issues that questioned the morality of the war. Iraq can be summed up in a number of successes and failures. Saddam Hussein was successfully removed from power in 2003. He was executed in 2006, and this helped to instill a democracy in Iraq. However, this democracy was very haphazardly put together, and the newly elected president, Nouri al-Maliki, is known to be very easily influenced. Despite this, Maliki and President George W. Bush had very good relations, and this helped strengthen the U.S.'s presence in the Middle East. However, ultimately, a surge of terrorism, most notably in recent news of the Iraq and Syria group ISIS, known as the Islamic State, has reemerged, and this group did not exist prior to the 2003 Iraq War. So ultimately, the war on terror has resulted in more terrorism as opposed to decreasing